Anyway, business now. Charles joining us. He's starting in Japan today, Asia's most profitable company, announcing a huge investment.
And that company is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. And they've announced plans to make some of their cutting-edge microchips in Japan. Those chips, as a reminder, are the building blocks on which artificial intelligence models are trained and operated on. And demand for them has surged. TSMC is the main supplier/builder of chips for companies like NVIDIA and Apple. So TSMC now says they will be building their 3-nanometer chips in a second plant near the city of Kumamoto on Kyushu Island in Japan. A nanometer, for reference, is a 1/1000th of a meter. The smaller it is, the more powerful the chips become. The original plan had been to build 7-nanometer chips there by 2027, and Japanese media is reporting that this upgrade will mean that TSMC's investment will be increased to 2.6 trillion yen. That's about $17 billion, an investment that could be further backed by the authorities in Tokyo, which have already subsidized the chip makers' existing build-out on Kyushu Island.
So why is it such a big deal then for Japan?
Well, the announcement was made during a meeting between the CEO of TSMC, C.C. Wei, and Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. Her administration has upheld Tokyo's goal of bolstering the country's chip-making capabilities, notably by almost quadrupling the budget to support advanced semiconductors building and AI development. That budget will now be worth about 1.25 trillion yen. It's about $8 billion. This also comes at a great time for her politically. There will be a snap lower house election over the weekend in Japan, and Takaichi is looking to increase her coalition's position. Take a listen to the Prime Minister.
TSMC's move into Kumamoto has been the missing piece for our country. It is enabling local production of advanced logic semiconductors and generating significant economic benefits, including a wide range of related investments.
So what's TSMC's strategy then?
Well, the main point here is to be able to meet this surging global demand for its chip-making services, and that's why it's engaging on this global build-out of fabs, or manufacturing plants. That's why they built this plant in Japan through its joint venture JASM, Japan Advanced Semiconductors, and are going to expand their presence there. They're also building new sites in the United States and Germany. It's also about securing the supply chain by internationalizing it. TSMC is mostly based in Taiwan, and its manufacturing there has hit some challenges, notably lack of land and troubles with getting enough electricity supply. And there's, of course, the geopolitical risk involved with Taiwan being a self-ruled island that is claimed by the People's Republic of China as its own. The last point here has two edges to it. On the one hand, it means Taiwan is a vulnerability for global chip making that could be taken in one fell swoop in the case of an invasion. On the other, that vulnerability would also affect Beijing, which depends on that chip making expertise. So having that expertise functions as somewhat of a shield. And that's why Taiwan and TSMC is careful to keep the most advanced chip making on the island. That's the 2-nanometer chips, and projects to go even smaller than that.
Let's move on with a look at the markets today.
On the major East Asian bourses, we're seeing stocks in the red, mostly after a tech sell-off in the United States. With chipmaker AMD, they're plunging 17% after its forecast underwhelmed analysts. The Kospi index in South Korea leading the losses, with chipmakers Samsung and SK Hynix also falling. TSMC shares in Taiwan also falling, but at a more moderate pace. In Europe, at the open, we're seeing stocks either lower or just almost 0.5% higher for your account in Paris. Big earnings reports coming in today, like oil giant Shell. The European Central Bank and Bank of England also announcing rate decisions later in the day, neither expected to change their current positions.
To Cuba for Charles's last story. Energy crisis continues there. Blackouts and fuel shortages are plaguing the island.
And in the middle of a diplomatic storm, Mexico's Pemex, the state oil company there, revealed it had supplied crude oil and petroleum products to Cuba worth $496 million in 2025. These shipments to Cuba have heightened friction between Mexico and the U.S. after President Donald Trump threatened last week he would impose tariffs on countries that sell oil to the Caribbean island. Story by Emily Boyle.
Time is running out for Cuba as the country's oil supply runs dry. Amid blackouts and rising prices, experts suggest the island will run out of fuel in the next 2 weeks.
The Secretary General is extremely concerned about the humanitarian situation in Cuba, which will worsen, if not collapse, if its oil needs go unmet.
Since the Trump administration's intervention in Venezuela, the US president has now turned his attention to Cuba, where he has openly discussed regime change. His strategy: dial up the pressure by reducing Cuba's oil supply. Cuba used to depend on Venezuela for its oil, but since the US blocked Venezuelan tankers in December, Mexico has now become the island's largest supplier.
The problem we have now is that the United States has said it will impose tariffs on any country that sells oil to Cuba. We are exploring all diplomatic channels to resolve the issue, as we don't want it to affect Mexico either. At the same time, we will be sending humanitarian aid while the oil issue is worked out.
Mexico's state-owned oil company Pemex reported that it sold around $496 million worth of crude oil and petroleum products to Cuba last year, accounting for less than 1% of crude oil production and representing only 0.1% of Pemex's total sales. So far in 2026, only one Mexican shipment of 85,000 barrels has arrived in Cuba. Cuban and US officials are reportedly in communication, although no official talks have yet been announced.
Sean Pellegrin with business. Straight to the paper.